Hi, I am Katie Schoaf, and I'm the Associate Director of Grants, Resources, and Services in the Office of Research here at Appalachian State. And I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes today about the University Research Council Grants Program that happens twice a year, every fall and every spring. And I'll go through how you access the application, talk about what the guidelines are and the criteria for review. And I will discuss the application components in a little bit more detail and talk about some best practices for ensuring a strong proposal. So I'll start with giving you a little bit of background about the University Research Council itself. The University Research Council is comprised of faculty members that are elected by the Faculty Senate to serve a 3-year term. And these faculty representatives are complemented by some administrative staff from around campus to compose the whole URC. Part of their duties are to advise the Vice Provost for Research on research-related issues or concerns happening around campus, but another part of their role is to review the University Research Council grants every fall and every spring. So the cycles, the deadlines are going to be in October and March of each year, and you do find out in that same semester if you've been selected for funding. So if you were to apply for a grant in October, you would know if you were funded by early December. And likewise, if you applied in March, you would know by early May if you were selected for funding. And so theoretically, if you were to complete all of your compliance requirements within a timely manner, you could be starting your research projects in that same semester. So starting it in December or in May or shortly thereafter, depending on what your compliance requirements are. So now I'm going to show you how to navigate to the application, where it lives, and where some basic information about the URC and the URC grants live year-round all the time. So I'm going to share my screen, and you want to start by navigating to research.appstate.edu, and I've already got that tab pulled up here. So you can see one of these top menu items is URC. So if you click this, you'll get the general URC, the University Research Council landing page. You can see the mission statement of the URC here, and you scroll down, you can see all of the current University Research Council members, representatives. So you can contact any of them if you have questions about your proposal or the process in general, or get more information about the URC. You can see when the academic year meetings are going to be held. So for this coming academic year, the voting meeting will be this November meeting to make the decision on fall applicants, and the spring voting meeting will be in March. In the April 16th meeting for spring applicants. If you continue scrolling down, you'll see again the information about is specific to the URC grants, which is what we're interested in for this recording. So there's some basic information for applicants here. There's a link to the frequently asked questions. You can see when these recurring deadlines are. They are consistent days of the week and times in the semester for both the fall and the spring in perpetuity. You can see there's a link to this webinar here. There's some proposal narrative guidelines, budget narrative guidelines that you can view at any time, even if the application system is closed. And then you can also see the contact information linked here. If you have any questions, that email does go to me directly. So you can also look at past recipients here, and then some other commonly used forms and policy links. But the link to the application is right here. It's the fourth bullet point down, and it will navigate you to the Info Ready home screen. If you've applied for any internal grant, you've likely landed here at some point in time. You scroll down to see the University Research Council grant application link. This is typically live the first day of classes on each semester. But we have it open a little bit early currently. But again, you can always see those requirements on that primary URC landing page, even if this portal is closed. So this links you to the application. It may ask you to log in once you click this apply button, and you'll use your Appalachian State University single sign-on credentials to do that. But you can, without logging in, you can still see the information at a glance. Just a reminder that all applications for University Research Council grants are due at noon, not at 5 p.m. This is a common mistake, so please make sure that you get those applications in before noon on the deadline. And you can see the current deadline here at the top. Also linked here on this primary page are some sample proposals, and these are for each of the 4 disciplinary review panels: social science, business and education, STEM, arts and humanities, and health. So there's some eligibility criteria here. So to apply, you need to be a full-time university employee. And you can only be listed as the applicant or co-applicant for 1 application under review at a time, or 1 active application at a time. You cannot be serving on more than 1 URC grant that is happening at a time. So you can't apply again until, if you've already had a URC award in the past, you cannot apply again until you've completed the final financial report for any previous awards here. So URC members are eligible to apply for URC grants, but if they are applying, they do not participate in the review for that cycle. So no worries on that front. They will not be looking at proposals of their competitors. They will not have access to the proposals of their competitors, but URC members are eligible to apply. Something important to note here, this is highlighted in yellow. If you have a signed publication agreement or any type of other agreement with an external entity, you are not, for the project that you are proposing, like you already have a book deal in place, even if it's a preliminary contract, if you've signed anything with a publishing company or an external entity about the project for which you're seeking funding, you are not eligible to apply for a URC grant. If you have questions about this specifically, please contact me at grs@appstate.edu, and I'm happy to discuss this with you. Scrolling down, these are the criteria for evaluation. This criteria list that you see here, the significance of the project, the conceptualization of the project, qualifications of the applicants, logistics, budget, and potential for support from external sources. This exact list of criteria is what the reviewers use in rubric form. So they are asked to rate your proposal with regards to these 6 things on a numeric rating scale, and to provide comments on how well you've addressed each of these things. So please pay particular attention to how you are addressing each of these elements in your proposal, and making sure that you are doing a good job at making your case for how well qualified you are. You can do that by discussing the personnel in the project narrative or your CV, explaining why the project is significant. You're going to need to have some references cited for that, giving some background, talking about how you're filling in a gap in the literature or in your field, all sorts of things. They want to know that you've thought this through, that you are the person to do the job, and you need to make a good case for doing that. This potential for additional support for external sources, this is not an outright requirement of the URC, but do know that additional weight may be given to proposals that are going to eventually lay the groundwork, or are going to lay the groundwork for eventual external proposals. Again, not necessarily a requirement. You may be able to do your project with just the money that you are applying for, up to $5,000 from these awards, and you may not need additional support in the future, but these grants are funded by returned facilities and administrative dollars from external grants. So we get a percentage of external grant dollars returned back to the Office of Research, and we reinvest those into grant programs like this one, like the University Research Council grant. So to keep it self-sustaining, we do have this stipulation here where additional weight or preference could be given to proposals that may eventually lead to external proposals. So just keep that in mind, that you may be competing against others that will have this advantage if your project does not. Okay, so again, linked here, all of these things are going to show up. The proposal narrative guidelines and the budget narrative guidelines are linked again within the proposal itself, but they are also here for reference if you'd like to look at them before you click into the proposal. You can save a draft as you work through this info ready screen. You don't have to complete it all in one sitting. You can work on it piecemeal, but do make sure you remember to click submit once your project is complete. and do so before the deadline of noon on the deadline day. So if you click apply, it's going to take you to this login screen, and you'll click on the Appalachian State University login page. It's already remembered me because I've been logged into this browser, but otherwise it will route you to the Shibboleth page, the single sign-on page. So just input your university credentials to get here. If you've used InfoReady before for a different application in the past, some of this will be pre-filled here. So your first name may be auto-filled, your last name, your email address. You can input your degrees here. This is not a requirement, but it is optional if you'd like to include that information. And then this is where you select your department. So you're going to click down through these drop downs. Likely you'll be in academic affairs. You'll choose your college. Office of Research is separate. But you'll choose your department. I'll just choose RIEEE for the sake of selecting one here. And then it will show up like this. If you have trouble with this drop down, please just let us know. You can input your primary appointment title here. That is going to be like assistant professor, associate professor, university program specialist if you are an EHRA staff member who is applying. Your departmental and administrator information. This is the admin in your department who is going to help manage the expenditure of your funds. So this is like your office manager, your budget officer, whoever handles the banner expense reports and things like that for your department. That's the name you want here. If you're in the College of Health Sciences, there is a college level representative that you'll need to put their information in here. But what we need to know is who is going to be helping you with the administration of your grant on the departmental or college level, and that you'll input that information there. You can add co-applicants here, and they can be internal or external co-applicants. We don't need to know external co-applicants, but if you would like to include them, you are welcome to here. Proposal title, you can input the title of your project there. You can select your review panel. There are 4 currently available. And then we'd like you to write a little bit of a review panel selection justification to make sure that you understand why you're putting yourself, or that the reviewers understand why you have put yourself in that proposal. This has come up in recent years where folks are unsure that they're reviewing proposals that are appropriate for their panel. So we just ask applicants to write a little brief 50-word max panel selection justification. If you are resubmitting a proposal, you do have the opportunity to address reviewer comments in a separate section that is not taking away from your 4-page limit for your attached proposal narrative. So you can address any resubmission comments here. You need to indicate if you have any internal funding received. It does not have to be related to the current project. We just want to know what sort of activity you've got going on in terms of funding internally at the university. If you've had previous URC awards, we want to know about those here. And any external funding activity broadly related to this current project. Not any external activity ever, unlike the internal grants. We want to know only about external grants that are related to this current project in some broad capacity. This is the compliance question. If you are using human subjects, you will need to indicate that the project may require review by the IRB. If you're using animal subjects, the IACUC is going to be the one for you. If you're using radiation or radioactive materials, radiation safety one is going to be for you. If you're using biohazardous materials, the Biosafety Council will be the one to review. Export controls relates to international travel. So if you're going outside of the United States for this project in any capacity, you'll need to select the export control buttons. You do not need to already have active protocols for these, but if you do, just indicate in your project narrative that you know that you need them, and include that the acquiring of the protocol in your timeline for the project. You have to have completed your annual conflict of interest disclosure before you are eligible for a proposal, to submit a proposal for the URC. And then again, we ask you this question about already signed a publication or promotion agreement. This is really important that you are accurate in your response here, because this is how we do our screening for proposals and proposal eligibility. And then we ask you to just at a glance provide the line item from the attached budget that indicates your total request from the URC. And again, that can be up to $5,000 per award or per project. So you will upload the bulk content of your proposal. So there is a proposal narrative upload, a budget upload, a CV upload that's required for you as the principal investigator, the PI, and it can only be 2 pages long. That 2-page CV limit applies to all CVs that you upload. You may have a co-applicant, you should upload their CV here, and it should also be an abbreviated 2-page CV. We have also added a requirement for a references upload. This used to just be a supplemental document suggestion, but now it is a requirement that you upload a references page or a works cited page or a bibliography page. It should be formatted according to the norms in your field. So whichever format applies to what you use for your publication manuscripts should be used for whatever type of references document you include here. And then after that, you get 3 optional supplemental documents. They could be biographical sketches for the rest of the research team or brief CVs for the rest of the research team. They could be images, charts. They could be quotes for materials or supplies or equipment. It could be like an email indicating that you have access to certain data sets or archives, or an invitation to access a location where you need to do field work, for example. So any of that sort of thing, any of those sorts of attachments, you have the option to include 3. You cannot bulk attach them in one document. They need to be separate documents. We do prefer PDFs for these uploads, but it will accept other types of uploads as well. But do know that everything will be converted into a PDF format for reviewers to access in PDF form, as well as the interactive review screen. So just make sure you're being aware of the reviewer experience when you're uploading your PDFs of your information. And then you'll input your chair email address here for chair approval. Your chair does need to acknowledge that they understand that you are applying for a URC grant. This is not a complete review by your chair. It's mostly them acknowledging that they know you're applying. And this is also for them to review in case you have committed any departmental support, or if they have committed any departmental support to your project, financial or otherwise, that they can acknowledge that here. So make sure that you input the correct email address there and double check it to ensure that it's accurate. Without a chair acknowledgement, your proposal cannot be reviewed. So do make sure that you let them know. The InfoReady system will alert them once you've submitted an application, but it's not a bad idea to give them a heads up ahead of time that you're intending to apply. And so they should be looking for that approval request in their inbox. Okay, and then this is where you, this is the virtual signature here, the eligibility acknowledgement, and you will indicate, you'll click that before you hit submit, and then you'll also be able to save your project draft here. Now I'm going to jump in to, this is pretty much it. This is it. This is all the stuff that you'll need to include in your proposal, all right here on one page. Now, to access the guidelines for each individual piece, you'll click on these highlighted links here. So for your proposal narrative, you need to look at the proposal narrative guidelines before you upload the document. This will have the complete instructions for what you need. So you are limited to 4 typed double-spaced pages formatted with 12-point Times New Roman font and 1-inch margins. If you exceed the page limit, or if you don't adhere to the formatting guidelines, your proposal may not be reviewed or may be cut off. If you submit ahead of the deadline during the technical review, you may have the opportunity to correct it, but please double check before you actually submit that your proposal follows these formatting guidelines. This is very similar to what external experiences are like and the expectations of external proposals. This is the naming convention we ask you to use for your narrative upload. And then we provide a recommended outline. We want you to start with the research question, including an abstract and a problem statement to sort of frame that research question. We want to know what the specific goals and aims are for the project. We want to know what the broader significance and implications are for the project. We want to know the methodology and the project design, how you're going to do what you say you're going to do. A timeline. You do have 12 months from the date of award to complete your project. So if you're funded in the fall semester, you will have an award letter that comes out probably early December, and you will have 1 year roughly from the early to midpoint of December to complete your project. So use that timeline when you're developing your proposal. We want to know about who's working on the project. Again, that helps you make the case for the qualifications of the applicants section of the review criteria. We want to know what the expected outcomes, products, deliverables, and or benefits are going to be. We want to know how you're going to disseminate results. Are you going to present at conferences? Are you going to publish in journals? Which ones? Be specific. The more specific you can be in this proposal narrative, the better. I do know it's brief, 4 pages, double spaced is not a ton. So do make sure that you are being succinct and direct and to the point, but very, very specific, not vague, as specific as you possibly can be. All right, clicking back to the application, the budget. The budget guidelines are here, and we do ask that you download a budget template and use that as your budget upload. So the maximum URC award is $5,000. People also ask us frequently about the funding rate for these proposals. We have between $50,000 and $60,000 to award each semester. So it's usually if everybody asked for $5,000, we would be right in the ballpark of 10 or 11 proposals each semester, but it usually ends up being a little bit more than that because not everybody asks for the full 5,000. Asking for less than 5,000 won't increase your chances of getting funded. We get asked that as well. You need to just ask for the budget that you need up to $5,000. If your project costs, your total project costs are going to exceed $5,000, please only include the money that you are asking for from the URC in your budget. So your budget should only total $5,000. And I'll reiterate that once I click into the budget template. And we do ask that you save this as a PDF. So when you go in and when you upload it, it will change, it will make the formatting for the review process nice and consistent. So there's a recommended outline for the budget narrative, which is also built into that budget template. And these are the things that you can use URC funds for. The primary things that you can use the URC funds for are paying students. So grad students or undergraduate students, paying for your travel to conduct the research, not to disseminate results or attend conferences, but to conduct and collect data. And this needs to be well justified, especially with the proliferation of Zoom and virtual or remote data collection. So you can hire student personnel, pay for travel, buy materials and supplies for your project. You could potentially hire an external contractor if that was necessary. So a translator, for example, but these people that anybody that you pay cannot be full-time employed by the institution. So you can't pay university personnel, you can't pay yourself. And you cannot pay for travel to conferences. You can't buy food. You can't support student theses or graduate work for these projects. So the details about what you can and cannot use the grant money for is here within the instructions for the budget. So make sure you review this before you begin work on your budget. Your budget template is here. It is a Google document. So what you will, and it's got some pre-filled calculations in here, so it's really handy, but you're going to have to download, or you're going to have to make a copy or download a copy of the document in order to use it. I have edit access, so it may let me actually input things here, but you won't. So instead of requesting edit access, you'll have to make a copy for yourself to keep it in sheet form, or download an Excel version and then save it as a PDF. The width of this template has been set so that when you convert it to a PDF, it won't chop off the ends of your cells. So please don't change the width of the cells. If you need more room, make it go down in depth and wrap the text. So make the cells bigger sort of vertically instead of horizontally if you need additional room. So these blue fields are locked, which is indicated here at the top, and then the yellow ones can be filled in and adjusted as needed. These totals will autofill here as you put in information. So we've got indicated here to grad students, to undergrad students. You can obviously change these to be whatever you need. You can make them all undergraduate students. You can hire 6 students if you can afford it. So just this is just some suggestions for what you might include. You are able to change these cell descriptions. Any of the white cells or yellow cells can be changed as needed. These are just some guiding principles here. Travel, again, you may not be using airfare. You may not have bags to check, but just some guidelines here for you to input, and then you'll need to input totals here. Lodging, other direct costs. This information is all here. So you can input those details and then details here in the yellow field. And down here's where your budget narrative goes. Okay, so you can merge these and make them wrap text if you want. You can make them function however you'd like them to function, but make sure that this total URC request box is not in excess of $5,000. Even if it's like $5,000.13, I'm going to send it back to you and ask you to revise it down to below $5,000. Again, even if your total project cost is really going to be in excess of $5,000, like your project's going to actually cost $7,000, but your department is providing $2,000 in the form of maybe you have startup money, or you have another departmental grant active that will be paying for an additional part, you can indicate that additional support here, and then explain it in the narrative that you are only asking for $5,000 from the URC, but really only expenses that the URC are paying for should show up in this budget template. Everything in your budget really needs to be well justified and explained, and nothing should show up in your budget that was not also shown up in your project narrative. So making sure you're being really intentional and clear about what you're including, and nothing that shows up here is a surprise. All right. And that is really it for the bulk of things that need to be included in your project. If you have any questions about the URC grant application process, I am happy to discuss this with you, meet with you, chat about it. The Office of Research will review a draft of your proposal before you submit it if you send it to us at least 2 weeks in advance of the deadline. So any of the GRS staff will review a proposal for you, give you some feedback. We are not involved in the decision-making process for the URC grants itself. So we can provide some advice on what needs to be included, what needs to be cleaned up. We're in the voting meetings, although we do not vote. We can give you some advice. I would definitely build in some time in your schedule to talk to some mentors, have some colleagues read your proposal if you can, and submit it in advance of the deadline. Again, if you submit it before that noon deadline, even if it's that same day, you will have the opportunity to correct any technical errors in the technical review process of your proposal, and fix them before they go to the full University Research Council for review. Otherwise, again, reach out to me with any questions, grs@appstate.edu, and I'm Katie. You can contact me directly and let me know if you have any questions about this process or the URC grants in general, and best of luck to all of you.